Rocky, thank you so much. 10 years ago, I would have never imagined that I'd be speaking to all of you today, turning 40 in April and celebrating climbing over a mountain called Overcoming Burnout. So, when Rocky asked me to speak to you today at the Comeback Summit, I knew I had to share my story with you. I knew that I had to share this with you because life wasn't always so easy. You see, my story includes overcoming postpartum depression, experiencing great grief after losing my father in law to suicide shortly after giving birth to my first daughter, losing my mother in law to Parkinson's just 6 months after that, surviving the traumatic birth of my second daughter, where I struggled with 4.5 years of PTSD. I did all of this while keeping my high demanding career of software sales going until I ultimately hit burnout in early 2020. So, my promise to you today is that you will learn 5 shifts to overcoming burnout and chronic stress as a high achieving working mom. You will learn how to shift out of the chronic exhaustion, feeling re energized and more fulfilled. I want you to feel more connection in your life. I want you to elevate your experience of working parenthood. It doesn't have to be hard. But I can guarantee you 2 things today. I can guarantee you that one, big life things are going to happen to you at some point or another. It's part of the human experience. And success lies in how we react to these things. Today, you're going to walk away with a tool set to not let any circumstance take you out of your vision for your biggest potential. You will have self awareness, emotional intelligence tools to really lead your motherhood journey no matter what happens in your life. Raise your hand in the chat, raise your hand visually if you're raising kids and growing your career at the same time. Ever feel overwhelmed, anxious, wondering if you ever get out of the parenthood rat race and give, an actual break? Over 90% of working parents are feeling burned out. Look at people in the Zoom if you can. Look at them and connect. You're not alone. Over 47% of dual income households, mom is the breadwinner. Ladies, we are up to really big things in our generation. Really big things. And I promise you that you will learn how to advance in your career while growing your family, all without sacrificing your relationships, your income, or your health. You can have a 10 out of 10 in your career and in your personal life all at one time. So I want to share my story with you today. Because you see, 9 years ago, I was at the top, I was at one of the beginning peaks of my career. I had landed a number of sales awards, President Club trips. I won a BMW from Vista Equity. I got promoted to sales leadership team. I was kind of living the life. My plan at the time was going to continue to climb the corporate ladder as an ambitious professional, have a couple of dogs, and live the dink life with my husband. In January 2014, well, God had a different plan. And I found out that I was having my first baby against all precautions. My new promotion required a ton of business travel, which went well the first few months as an expected parent. But around week 20, I had experienced some complications. So my husband came up to California, chaperoned me home, and I was on bed rest for the rest of my pregnancy. It was a long time. We made it to 34 and a half weeks when I was admitted to the local hospital again, stayed for another 10 days, and delivered via C-section in August 2014. Our baby was safe, she was healthy, and I was so happy to be a mom. But after several months of bed rest, I was depressed. For the first few months, I also lived with extreme lack of sleep due to some tongue tie and breastfeeding issues that we had in those early days. And there was no doubt I had postpartum anxiety and depression. I often just try to power through to be the one that would, breastfeed no matter the cost. I felt like a failure. It wasn't working. And then I had spent much of my maternity leave focused on achieving this successful thing instead of enjoying time with my baby. I was focused on the achievements. I took 12 weeks of maternity leave, jumped back into my sales role, but a few months later demoted myself to a sales rep, which is not a bad deal, but I changed industries, and to me, it was a demotion. I thought in order to be a good mom, I had to sacrifice something. I had to feel, like something had to give. But really, it was me not managing my emotions. It was the burnout cycle. I gave in to fear and anxiety. I thought I had to power through and achieve things and never give myself permission or grace to take a break. Any of you relate? Motherhood doesn't always come easy, does it? I know that many of you out there today have gone through some really challenging journeys as a mom. And I really want you to know you're not alone. You're so not alone. Before my daughter's first birthday, we went back to the Midwest to see my in-laws. They lived in Kansas, and little did I know that this time was going to be a really life-altering event. You see, we saw Grandma and Grandpa and returned home from Arizona. It was right after the 4th of July. When we woke up in bed and got a call that morning, it was about 6 a.m. My husband's brother called. Dad died. He took his own life. My heart fell to the floor, smashed to smithereens. And 6 months later, we lost my mother-in-law to Parkinson's. I didn't know what was going to happen. All I knew is that in that moment, our new parent journey just took another turn down emotional hardship. I felt the biggest hole in my heart. My in-laws were gone. My poor husband just lost his parents. And I had no idea how to support the grief process after a suicide. Nobody ever writes a book on that. It was extremely hard. But all I knew was to put on a fake smile and go to work and try to cover up the pain that I had experienced from all those losses. The emotional roller coaster continued, and the disconnection from my authentic self continued. We disconnected as a couple. We just continued, just barely surviving. Another year later, my husband turned 40. We went to Vegas to celebrate his birthday. And that was also a favorite place of my father-in-law. I had lost the baby weight, so I was pretty excited to have a weekend with my husband in Vegas. But when I started to put on that dress that night to go out to dinner, and all of a sudden it didn't look good. All of a sudden, this 7-course dinner didn't taste good. The wine didn't even taste good. I had a sip, and it was like, ugh. The only thing that was good that weekend was on Sunday, I ordered Nutella French toast from the Cosmopolitan Hotel. Highly recommend. But I turned to my husband and I said, I'm on birth control again. I mean, we could not have another baby. I mean, like, how does that happen twice? But I have to take a pregnancy test just to make sure. Sure enough, we were pregnant. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy that this is happening. But what a great blessing from God after such a dark time. Her delivery was quite a different story, though. This time we made it to 36 weeks. The epidural had failed, and the doctors had to use forceps to get her out. And it was really, truly the most excruciating pain I have ever been in. And it led to 4.5 years of PTSD symptoms. I really disconnected fully. I disconnected from my marriage. I didn't want anything to do with intimacy due to birthing trauma. So what did I do? Well, I continued on with my life in denial, putting on an inauthentic smile, went back from maternity leave and just kept going, denying the emptiness, denying all of my feelings, the anxiety, the overwhelm that fueled my brain. And that ultimately led to burnout and breakdown in relationships. And looking back, I was disconnected with my colleagues too at work. Do you see the emotional roller coaster that chronic stress can look like? Denial is a Band-Aid. Job hopping is a Band-Aid. Overworking is a Band-Aid. It doesn't cure it. In February 2020, I hit ultimate burnout. So what was I doing? I had subconsciously used my career and all of the busy achieving energy to define my self-worth. I created an emotional roller coaster by choosing to let emotions control me, buying into the myth that working motherhood had to be hard and full of sacrifices, and that I couldn't have this career and family all at one time. Do any of you feel like that it's such a struggle? Well, let me tell you how I overcame it. How did I make my comeback? Well, it was really not just a comeback in my career, it was a comeback to my authentic self. So let's dig into those 5 shifts and how you can go from being exhausted and burned out to feeling balanced and re-energized. I'm going to share my screen with you here in just a second, and we'll get into these tips that will help you get over these things. Okay. And I hope that you guys can see my screen okay. Do you feel like the penalty of parenthood and caregiving is real and can't be overcome? That is something that still comes up with me. Sometimes I have to ask myself, wait a minute. And the real problem is that when we're thinking that way, we really haven't made the mental shift yet, right? And when you make the mental shift, you are going to be able to really live your life a different way. It's a totally new experience. Because when you make the shifts I'm about ready to show you, you start to eliminate worry, the doubt, the chronic stress. You'll start to connect with people again because you're actually able to clear your mind. You're actually able to sleep at night. You're actually able to really be available to connect with other people. And you're clearing the blocks out of your way. So let's dive into shift number one. Shift number one is all about giving yourself permission to feel. Sometimes, for all of you high achievers out there, this isn't always the easiest thing to be vulnerable, to really feel that emotion throughout your day. But you must lead with intention. I love the team here at Spotlight today because they're talking all about intention, and that is such a great practice. Acknowledge setting a goal through intention, but acknowledging your feelings of how you want to actually experience life that day. It's not about the checklist, it's not about the task list, and it's about also giving yourself grace, letting go of that self criticism, and giving yourself that place where you can have an emotional, physical, and spiritual break throughout the day. You really have to give yourself all three. And I don't care if it's for 5 minutes each or a half hour each, whatever you can fit into your day. They're important because they're critical rest and recovery points in your life as a human being in order to operate at your optimal performance. And you'll be amazed at when you do this, you're giving yourself more breaks than probably you ever have before. And you're now doing things you never thought you could do, even as a working parent. Overwhelm is something that can creep into all of us. And it's really caused from two different things: being unprepared or a lack of commitment. And so, how do we overcome this? Well, you have to eliminate unnecessary busyness in your life. So, this is shift number two. When we're really super busy, we're creating overwhelm for ourselves. Where that can come in is from a lack of feeling worthy. It's a self-worth conversation in many cases. Yes, you can be very busy because you have a baby and a job and whatnot, but subconsciously, under those layers, there may be a feeling of not feeling enough, feeling like you have to do more, achieve more, just like I talked about in my examples. You might be avoiding connection with other people for some reason. You might be associating your self worth in how many things you do and accomplish in a day. And so, if you want to overcome burnout and that cycle of always having, like, kind of hitting against a wall every couple of years, you've got to do this work where you look at, why am I staying busy? And then we get to eliminate it. The chronic stress cycle looks like something like this. You feel inadequate, you feel fear, you feel overwhelmed. Those are all really icky feelings, aren't they? Well, they're not coming from your creator. Let me just say that. And so those feelings are icky, and it starts to open up your brain of looking for validation, looking for someone else's approval of you. And so now what's happening is you're actually delivering your power away on a gold platter to someone else. You've lost it. You've eroded your self confidence, and your body starts to subconsciously go into fight or flight mode. You're asking and waiting for approval. Am I good enough? What if this happens? What if that happens? You focus on past events, which just sucks your energy, doesn't it? For those of you listening that have ever felt really, really intense anxiety, you know what I mean. It's an energy suck, big time. So let's break through it. The leading mother mindset reboot is something I developed to help myself break through this. I've been to therapy. I've done those things. I used to drink a little bit too much wine every once in a while. Overworking, totally signed up for that. Didn't work. Job hopping, that didn't work. Denial doesn't work. Maybe you grew up in a family that told you all of your childhood that when you had something emotional, just suck it up. It'll get better tomorrow. I don't want to talk about it. Maybe you grew up in that kind of neglect. Whatever it is, doing that again over and over and over, these are ways that just don't work. So does it make sense to continue them? I don't think it does. What I do think works is this new way. You get to really let go because your past doesn't define you. You get to let go of control and you get to really get into a place of surrender, into having your life flow a different way. And so this is how you can structure a new way to your day. Much like we just talked about with intention, we're going to talk about those things right here. You have to create that self-awareness of anxiety. You have to know what things are really causing those sources in your life, and that's unique to you. You need to know what your blind spots are. You need to heal any past traumas that you may have been in, and those things can really hold us back. Those can be blocks. So we've got to look at that as step one. Then you get to step into your vision. You get to really get to know, gosh, what do I really authentically want? Not what I think everybody wants from me or what their expectation is, not what my husband thinks I need to do, but you get to set an intention of what you want to do and create. And that leads us into the ability to then create appropriate boundaries that support the intention. It has to go in that order. And then step number 4 is about being courageous in your committed action to really rewire your brain. Your brain needs new evidence. This new way of living is going to work. And that's how we create breakthrough. And it's a beautiful process. And it brings us into shift 4, where you start to really live your life knowing your worth. You're exiting the emotional roller coaster based on your choice. You start to choose to not live being drugged down or being controlled by your emotions. You start to step into leadership, prioritizing your time, setting your boundaries, leveraging resources as a working mom, being open to receiving help. That's not always an easy one. But because you start to see how valuable you are and your energy is so valuable, you start to leverage help so that you can create the intention that you want to lead and deflect those icky feelings of fear and anxiety. And you start to shift out of, those big life events and make decisions faster, doing things you never thought you would do. I went from being in corporate sales and now I'm leading my own company and creating my own programs. Did I ever think that was going to happen a few years ago? Not hardly. Not hardly. The last shift is you've got to stop lone wolfing. Many high achievers get frustrated sometimes with working with other people. And if you are one of those individuals that sometimes has a little bit of difficulty saying, I'm just going to go do it all. Well, you can't do it all, because you just don't have that ability to scale as one human being. You do have the ability to invest in it. And it's so important to have that accountability partner, that objective third party that's going to call you to your greatness. They're not emotionally attached to you. Your mentor should not be emotionally attached to you. They're going to be letting you really be in a place where you're working into a growth mindset. You're committed in your action to create your vision and get results, but they're going to call you forward to your level of greatness. So these are the 5 steps you need to win over anxiety, depression, burnout, whatever you want to call it. It's all very, very similar. And you have to give yourself permission to feel, eliminate the unnecessary busyness, use that reboot on your mindset, become a leading mother, and operate knowing your worth. Invest in a mentor. The more you invest in yourself, the more you just start to level up to the next level again and again. Leading motherhood is about taking really responsibility for your family and creating an unlimited opportunity of success in your life. You don't have to settle. You don't have to settle. So I'm happy to connect with you guys today, and I really appreciate your time. I recently wrote a book and would love to get on a breakthrough call with all of you. You can just scan the QR code to bring that site up to book a call. But I hope that sharing my journey with you today and being vulnerable in really those hard life circumstances I went through helps give you some perspective on you can get out of those situations. You can really overcome that burnout mountain and get to a life that's connected and free. Thank you so much.